Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Marketing Matchmaker. I have to say, I love these interviews, especially the ones we've been having lately on Marketing Matchmaker. Today, we're talking about branding. And I know that I've talked about branding in the past on other episodes, but I thought it might be fun to bring on an actual expert around personal branding. So, meet Michelle McCarthy. She is a personal brand strategist with more than 15 years of experience working with everyone from solopreneurs to tech giants. Her passion really lies in helping successful women with bold ambitions step out from the confines of their current role and build authentic brands. Thank you for joining us today, Michelle. I always like to give a brief glimpse into who our client are to our interviews are, but I love to give you the opportunity to really explain what it is do you do, who you are, who you love to work with.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this chat. So, yes, I'm Michelle. I worked in corporate branding for the best part of 15 years. And back in 2020, during the height of the pandemic, I had this brainwave that I was going to set up my own business. And I was like, sure, what's the worst that could happen? And because I had years and years of experience in branding and marketing, I was like, how hard can it be? I do this for a living. Piece of cake, set, forget, I'll be a millionaire by Friday. Easy peasy. Turns out it is incredibly difficult to build a personal brand. And I was taking corporate brand strategies and trying to apply them to a personal brand.
Yeah.
So within all this mix of me trying to figure it out, I was like, wait a second. I do this for a living. Like, I have a very proud degree on my wall that says I can do this. I can charge people for this. And I couldn't do it for myself
Yeah.
in terms of building a personal brand. So I was like, if I'm struggling with it, then there has to be other women out there that are just bamboozled by all the different information and they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So that's when I slightly pivoted my business into personal branding and like deep dive myself into what it takes to build a personal brand. So that's how I then developed my framework. And here we are today. So I love helping women, whether they are business owners or executives, build their personal brand so that they can step into their next level, whatever that is for them. For some people, it's writing a book. For some people, it's speaking on stages. For some people, it's just getting a promotion or getting paid better. It's different for everyone, but the brand principles are the same in terms of building a personal brand. So that's what lights me up and my journey of how I got here, essentially.
I love that journey. And I'd love to start with what's the
Mhm.
difference between a personal brand and a corporate brand and that whole idea behind, what exactly is a personal brand?
Yeah. So I mean, if done correctly, a personal brand is an extension of who you are. That's how you build a congruent, consistent, authentic brand. I think the main difference is when you're dealing with corporate branding, it's consumer first. So you do your research, you see where the gap is, what do the consumers want, and then you like mold yourself to fit that need or that desire, which works for a corporation because you can kind of inform everyone and you kind of have this facade and you hide behind your packaging, your services, your logo. But when you're a personal brand, it's you first because otherwise there's this inconsistency. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They go, oh, okay, I'm going to be like this person or I'm going to be like this, but it's not congruent.
Mhm.
And I always say people have excellent BS detectors. Like we know when you're not being authentic. Like
Yes.
you even if you can't put your finger on it, you can go, something's off about her. And obviously people buy from people they know, like, and trust. So
Mhm.
if you don't have that trust factor, you know, it's it's never gonna work. You're always gonna hit a ceiling in terms of your ability and your reach. So I think what's super important for personal branding is people look at themselves first rather than rushing to what I call all the fun stuff, all the tangible, the colors, the photo shoot, the
Right.
Canva templates,
Yeah.
everyone wants to do that because it seems productive because you've got something tangible. Whereas you have to kind of like slow your roll a little bit and do the deep dive into yourself and figure out who you are and what you want to present in the most authentic way, obviously.
I think that's so critical and key because really your brand informs your marketing. And
Hmm.
I agree with you that so many people want to do the fun stuff, the graphic design, the color, the URL, those kind of things. And the reality is that's not actually what's important when it comes to your marketing your business. It
Hmm.
has to start with you and who your ideal client is.
Yeah.
And if you are trying to be inauthentic, you're never going to attract your ideal client
Yeah.
because not only will they know, but the people you do attract are attracted to the facade you present,
Yeah.
which
A
is
hundred
completely
percent.
distant different than who you are.
And I am totally guilty of this, by the way. I'm not sitting here preaching. I did some pretty cringy stuff. And again, as someone who worked in branding, and I should have known better, I like one of the things that I do, and if anyone is listening and they do this, immediately change it. If you are just you are just a solopreneur or it's just you, please stop referring to we and us and everything in like as the collective. I thought that if I presented myself as this like big agency, I would seem more professional. It's absolute bull because people can see through it. And also, I was working, it was the middle of COVID. I was working from my kitchen table. I didn't even have an office, I didn't even have a desk. And I'm like, our values are, and it's just like, no, no, it's embarrassing. So yeah, be be who you are. Don't lie. I mean, polish, absolutely, but don't
Absolutely.
lie. Don't lie and think that you need to be anything more than what you are. Because, like you just said, when you show up as who you are, you actually attract the people that you want to attract
Yeah.
rather than the other people.
Everybody else. So when it
Hmm.
comes to authenticity, because I think that's the biggest thing. I think people have a lot of fear behind it
Hmm.
about showing who they really are because there are trolls, let's be honest.
Hmm.
There's gonna be somebody out there that doesn't like who you are. So how do you help them work around that fear of being authentically them?
Yeah. So there's two major parts. The first is you got to like yourself. So that's a lot of the work that I do with with my clients is there is a bit of self-development and mindset work in there. So we take a deep dive into what is holding you back. Why don't you want to show up authentically? And we work with that. It's different for every person. We either, reframe your mindset or we can reframe your messaging, a little bit of both. And the most important part is the self acceptance, which
Mhm.
I don't really advertise as part of my framework. It's just kind of like an added bonus because people are like, yeah, 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 yeah. That's all well and good. I need to be making money. I
It's
need
not
my
a
brand. I need my colors.
tangible. Yep.
Yeah, but it's in there because when you accept yourself, the trolls won't bother you
Right.
because you're like, yeah, whatever. This is who I am. I've accepted who I am. I like who I am. Look at all these people who also like who I am. You, user 123, whatever. The the other part of it is because authenticity is thrown around a lot recently.
Mhm.
I think people are confused as to what it means. So quite often there's two different sides. One is people think that being authentic is trauma dumping, crying on camera, showing pictures of their kids, like showing too much of
Yeah.
quite often things that aren't relevant. And my job is to explain to them that no, you don't have to do any of that. You set your own boundaries as to what you're comfortable sharing. And quite often, a lot of these things that you think are authentic have absolutely nothing to do with your brand. One of the examples that I quite often use is filters. There's nothing wrong with filters. People have different views, whatever. I
Mhm.
use filters when I'm having a flare up, whatever. It makes me feel confident. And I don't have a problem with it because it helps me show up and be consistent. But I'm also not selling a skincare. I'm not selling makeup.
Right. That is an
That's where
essential difference.
I'm selling my service and I can tell you how to build a personal brand.
Yeah.
I'm not pretending that I got this quote unquote clear skin from my 5-step regime that you can buy in my bio. It's so finding out what is authentic to you that's also in line with your brand
Right.
is yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think filters in and of themselves can be used. It's the same as wearing makeup, right? I don't
Mhm.
personally wear makeup because it annoys me. So, however, you know, a filter, if used appropriately, is no
Mhm.
different than wearing makeup. And you're right. As long as you're not trying to sell the skincare or the massive eyes that you get under filters or
Oh,
whatever.
some of them are scary. Some of them are really scary. I'm like, okay, you know, then you put on your normal camera and you're like, oh, I mean, they can wreak havoc on your self confidence.
They
Like you said,
absolutely can.
I'm not promoting them. I'm just saying if you're someone that uses them and you hear someone online being like, ditch the filters, because it's not authentic. But if you have, you struggle with skin issues or you just don't feel comfortable and you're not going to talk to camera without a filter, long-term goal, you can get comfortable
Yeah.
and, learn to not use filters. But if it's going to get you on camera, showing up and being consistent, and again, doesn't counteract what your messaging is,
Yeah.
what's the like
There's
what's
no
the
harm in
problem?
it. Yeah.
That's how I see it. So finding those elements of your messaging and your brand and how you're showing up that is consistent and doesn't kind of contradict itself. I think that's the big thing is not to contradict what you're presenting.
So how does someone really, I know you have a framework. So
Mhm.
how do we go about like dialing in our personal brand as opposed to, because I think people often forget as entrepreneurs, 99% of the time, we are a personal brand, even if our company is
Mhm.
a company, right? Like you might own, we'll just use myself. I digital marketing agency, owned it for a decade. We had a company, but I've always been the face
Mhm.
of the business. I'm the person that people looked at, talked to, all of that kind of stuff. So when it comes to that kind of personal branding, how does someone go about, where do they start?
So the first thing will be to do a bit of an audit. If you already are somewhat showing up, I mean, everybody has a personal brand. So even if you don't have a social media, I think the two of them are kind of linked a lot at the moment. But you have a personal brand, how you show up, how you go to meetings, how you present yourself into the world is your personal brand. So do an audit and figure out if what you're presenting is consistent and again congruent. The next step would be, and this is for someone who does not have a personal brand at all, you can start here, is do a bit of a deep dive into who you are. Uncover all the different aspects, who you are on a personal and professional level. Do that deep dive, do that self-discovery, and again, learn to like yourself. And then through that, through that process, you will find elements of yourself that you can tie in. One of the examples that I use is in my framework. One of the first things we do is we write down your goals. And it sounds very like, yeah, write down your goals. But we do a deep dive into it. And it gives an insight into who you are as a person. So when I did this for myself, what kept coming up was like the type of house that I have. The fridge is going to be full. People like come in, kick off their shoes. It's relax. That gives an insight into who I am. So then if you fast forward to all the fun stuff, you go, oh, if I was to do a photo shoot, it's going to be in my house. There's going to be
Right.
lots of food in it. It's going to be very relaxed rather than something in an office space or a corporate space or outside, because we have figured that out. And those are everybody has those different elements. So doing that deep dive, while it seems like, yeah, I know myself, it's really, really important because you can pull out those little strings and it's like doing a little bit of a braid. Like you pull this string and then you pull this string and you slowly plait it together. And by the time you get to the fun stuff, like the tangible things that we were saying earlier, it kind of writes itself.
Right.
And then it's just a natural extension of who you are. So take a pause, do that self-discovery part, and you'll go so much further, so much faster.
I love that. I love that because I don't think we do that often enough in general when it comes to our business. Like really
No.
starting from a place of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
because that's who, in all reality, we attract who we are or who we
Mm-hmm.
were, depending on the type of business that we're developing. So if we're not clear on that, how are we ever going to attract who we want to work with?
Yeah. And I think we think that we're clear because we obviously live with our brains. Whether you like it or not, we live with our brains like all day, every day. So we think it's clear and it's like it's bouncing around inside there. So like with the goals, everyone's like, yeah, I know my goals or I know my brand values. Yeah. I don't need to write them down. And
I
I
never
find
know
that
the
people,
brand values.
but it's people who work in marketing, especially, are the most guilty of
Oh,
this.
absolutely.
Because we're like, I again, like I during the pandemic, I was like, yeah, I know that a piece of cake for
Mhm.
me. I don't need to do that. And if anything's like, no, you definitely need to do this because you think you know it and it's bouncing around inside there and it's not clear at all. So getting all these things on paper, as simple as they sound, they're really gonna pave the way for everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Speaking of brand values, what are the pieces of our brand that we're looking at? Like obviously brand values is one piece, but what are other areas that we look at to create that personal brand?
So we look at your journey as a whole. And then from there, so we look at your goals, your aspirations, your why. That's a huge part. And particularly, I find women are a lot more why driven. I work with women predominantly, and like you were saying, most of them they're solving a problem because they went through something.
Yeah.
So, and they like just I my clients are amazing. They are the most caring. Like they want to change the world. Like they
Yeah.
just want to they care so much. It's never about the money. It's always about like being of service, which I absolutely adore. So it's pulling in that into your messaging. You're putting in your brand values and your journey. And you're pulling all that in. And then again, we're pulling in who you are as a person. So what you stand for, what what you want to achieve. And I've lost my train of thought.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. So our brand values, our own journey, who we are as a person. Um, Obviously your brand somewhat relates to the colors and, all of those
Mm.
fun things. Are there other items that we really need to understand and know in order to create a personal brand? effectively?
Yes and no. Yes, because it all happens organically.
Yeah.
So rather than me listing off a laundry list of like a checklist,
Yeah.
it does happen organically. So yes, your colors are really important, but that is all informed by who you are. One of the things that's really big on TikTok at the moment is like doing your color analysis, which I quite like as integrating into your brand, because then you're a walking talking billboard, which you are anyway, but you're always on brand. You
Yep.
know you're going to look good.
Yep.
And then we're not all rocking around in our neon pink, which I feel like is a little bit overdone. Guilty also of it. But yeah, so getting all those different elements together, it does happen organically. It does all stem from that self development
Yeah.
part.
I love the color analysis and really being
Mm,
on brand. Funny story, my at the holidays, my husband went shopping with my daughter for to buy me Christmas presents. They wanted to buy me clothes.
mm.
And my husband comes home and he goes, "Do you know why you were the most difficult person to shop for?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "Because your daughter tells me everything has to be on brand, which means we have to find." I was like, "Well, it does make my life easier." Like, no
Yeah.
matter what I put on, I know it's going to be okay to record a video with it that day.
Oh my god, how old is your daughter?
She's 21.
Oh, okay. I was like picturing like a 7-year-old being like, "No, dad."
She
But oh
probably
my,
would have at 7. I mean, she's pretty involved in my business, but yeah, that's
I love that. That's smart. I just think that's extremely smart. And then like that, I mean, it's also about like making your life easier.
yeah,
I don't want to be like, oh, because like color theory, like in terms of like red can be danger and green can be calming and serene. And there's loads of different, you can
right,
look them all up there.
right.
I call a little bit of BS in it. I
Yes,
think it works to a certain point, but also like a lot of banks use red. So danger banks, I mean, technically yes, but I
that's all a
don't
matter
think
of
they're
opinion, but yeah.
exactly, but I don't think their marketing team was like, you know what, we need a danger color. So there is a lot of like theory that goes into that. But when it comes to yourself, I'm all about making your life easy. So
Yeah.
if you know that you are going to rock up, you're going to feel confident
Mhm.
in sage green, and you're going to like, it's going to make you feel confident, you're going to feel good like that. You can pull anything out of your wardrobe. And because everything's in your colors, everything matches. Not a stylist, but like,
Yep.
and then, and then like that, you go, oh, I have this great idea for content. So you're ready to rock. You already know that you can use a filter, so you don't have to spend an hour doing your makeup. And yeah, you can just rock up, show up, bish bash bosh, done.
Pretty much. Yeah, I think that's the best part about it. I love this talk about personal brand because I think that so many people I actually have told people before, your brand is not what you say it is, it's what your clients say it is. Because
Mhm.
once you put your personal brand out there, if you're not crystal clear on it, they're going to say whatever it is they think it is.
Yeah.
So, really taking a step back and starting from the foundation of it and working its way up, when you're ready to then go out with it, you're confident in your brand,
Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah. And also like confidence sells as well. You like So if you're selling a product or a service and you're showing up quite sheepishly and you're not really sure of yourself and you're scratching and you're uncomfortable and like people are going to go, I like her, but I don't really, I'm not so sure. So again, it's all about like making things easy for yourself. So if you know this is going to make you a little bit more confident, then it's going to help you sell. Like everything has a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
And when it's your personal brand, because it can be a little bit personal, obviously, but it can feel quite vulnerable and scary to show up yourself, because that rejection is a personal rejection. Even if you're selling a product or, a service, it feels very, very personal. And I think that's
Yeah.
what holds people back. So if you can get as many of these different layers to work for yourself and make them as easy as possible, you'll create kind of like a snowball effect where you start showing up more confidently, and then people trust you more, and then you'll get a couple of clients, and then that'll build more confidence, and it just starts to stack on top of each other. People kind of want to get to the end result and be like, oh, they see someone who's like on stage and is like super confident, and you're like, yeah, yeah, I want to be that, but then like forget that you have to do all the building blocks in between.
That's one of the biggest things, especially with social media, and it's
Mhm.
something that I point out continually. You are trying to make judgments based on other people's highlight reels. These are the best of the best moments, and if you're comparing yourself to somebody else based on their top tier moments when you're at
Mhm.
your not top tier, I can guarantee you that that is not an everyday thing for them. These are their highlight reels.
Yes, that's so good. That is so, so good. That needs to be put on a t-shirt. In your brand colors. um, yeah, one of the things that I highly, highly encourage is to unfollow creators. So you can obviously unfollow people that you don't like, and you find like that you're comparing yourself to, and you get into this kind of like comparison paralysis. Unfollow them, unfollow people who are just not nice and not kind and you just don't vibe with. But I also encourage people to unfollow that, like that one creator who is in the same or similar niche that you are consuming all of their content, because what ends up happening is you end up mimicking them.
Yeah.
And it's most of the time it's unconscious. You don't
Yep.
mean to, but you start like talking like them, and you start like using the same gestures and the same, and you may not be able to put your finger on it, but you're like something is off. And it happens to everyone, especially if you're starting out. We're all guilty of it. So I would unfollow those people, because if you're watching all of their stories and all of their reels, it just becomes ingrained, and it's messing with you figuring out who you are.
I love that. I love
Mm.
that tip. And I think we'll leave that there as the tip. So, for those of our audience that are struggling right now, how with their branding, with trying to figure out how to create a personal brand, what's the
Mhm.
best way for them to reach out to you?
The best way is on Instagram or LinkedIn. LinkedIn, Michelle McCarthy. Instagram is I'm Michelle McCarthy.
Mhm.
And if you want to talk more about it, I offer a free personal branding strategy call. So bio on my IG is probably the best way to find out everything about me.
Fantastic. Awesome. I will have all of those links in the show notes for those of you that didn't write that down. You can head over to yourmarketingmatchmaker.com and click on the episode, and all of that information will be in that show notes. And for those of you that are struggling to establish your brand or to grow and scale your business, now is a great time to get started. There is no better time than now. We want to have a personal brand that will help you to grow your business, increase your revenue, and scale your impact. Until next time, figure out who you are and then show the world. Thank you for listening to the Marketing Matchmaker podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love to hear your feedback. Please head over to Apple, iTunes, and leave a review so we can hear from you. And if you are a coach, consultant, or online course creator who are looking to grow your business, increase your income, and scale your impact, connect with me at yourmarketingmatchmaker.com. I look forward to hearing from you.